All right, let's see. Okay, looks like we have a really nice audience to start with. So welcome everybody. My name is Lindsay Rickershauser. I'm here to say welcome to our ChemDraw Connect webinar series. I am the product leader for ChemDraw at Revity Signals, and I'm very excited to welcome you all here to join us in exploring the power of ChemDraw. Today's webinar is titled Integrate and Innovate with ChemDraw, the Ultimate Chemistry Communication Hub. Our topics today will include how to quickly and efficiently generate structures and drawings in ChemDraw by leveraging a variety of different supported formats within the software. Also, how to streamline your research using integrated add-ins in ChemDraw, exploring things like the chemistry literature and patent databases, finding existing substances and associated properties, even finding hazard information for substances you may be using in the laboratory. Our guest speaker today is Jinsu Kim. He is the manager of the Americas Field Application Scientist team at Revity Signals. Jinsu holds a BS in physiology from UC Santa Barbara and a PhD in organic chemistry from UC Santa Cruz. With over a decade of research experience in therapeutic areas including oncology, ocular disease, and gene editing, Jinsu now serves as a technical expert on products such as ChemDraw and Signals Notebook at Revity Signals. So join me in welcoming him to present today. So following Jinsu's presentation, I'll moderate a Q&A session where you can ask any questions you may have as the webinar progresses. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Jinsu.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate the intro. So thank you all for joining us today for what is going to be an interesting and maybe a bit unconventional look into ChemDraw. We're going to talk about some of the different ways that you can interact with the software to generate structures that don't necessarily leverage the toolbar that you're all used to drawing. So what I'm talking about is increasingly as we become more kind of multidisciplinary and things like that, we find that there are people that want to work with chemical drawings in ways that don't necessarily start with drawing bonds manually and doing these things. So we're looking into things like chem informatics and those sorts of areas, and how do you interact with content like that? So most of us, a lot of you that are experts with ChemDraw, if I asked you to draw a molecule, benzoic acid, for example, none of you needs help in figuring out how to draw this particular thing. You know that we've got the drawing tools here that make it really easy. We've got our hotkeys. I could have made it extremely easy by using the name to structure, right? Benzoic acid, and then name to structure. These things, they're old hat to most of you. But again, where most of us are starting to get into are into these multidisciplinary areas. Now let's take a look at something like this. A lot of times you're working with a compound and you might see something like a SMILES string, right? That's a text-based representation of a chemical structure. And so it's a way to work with people in the chem informatics space. How do I get a structure from this though? This is something that lends itself really well to populating a spreadsheet. So if I have an Excel sheet with 50 different compounds, this works really nicely. But now I want to see what those things look like. What do we do? What I'm going to do is copy this, Control C. That's literally it. Control C. I come to ChemDraw and Control V. And it recognizes that structure and puts it onto the canvas for me. Now, in addition to having access to the SMILES translation, INCHI keys also work. And so if you're working with either SMILES or INCHI, you can copy this, and then same behavior, I can paste, and now I've got a little sugar to go with my coffee here. But that native kind of understanding of, hey, here is a chem informatics language, it's a string of text, but the fact that I can literally just copy that bit of text, come back into ChemDraw and hit Control V, and it translates into a structure, that is incredibly valuable. And that's something that, again, is something that we're seeing increasingly more and more as folks get into these areas where you're working with people in the chem informatics space. Let's take a look at another use case, which is working with biopolymers, things like peptides, let's say. Now, a lot of you hopefully are aware of the hotkeys that we've now introduced into ChemDraw, which makes drawing a polypeptide backbone manually really easy, a lot easier than going into here and drawing them and then choosing the proper stereochemistry to represent the side chain. I can do something like N, 4, 2, N1, 5, 2, N1, 4, 2, N1, right? So I've just built a polypeptide backbone here, and now I just need to build something off of here. Oh, this is going to be my, let's see, my, why am I forgetting the names? It's threonine, maybe valine, but then maybe I'll leave this as alanine. This one is going to be serine. So there you go. It's really easy to build your polypeptide backbone in this way, as we all know. But there is actually an even easier way to work with this particular, with these kinds of biopolymers. Let's go back to our web pages and say, hey, I'm looking at a blast sequence of something, insulin in this case. This is rather long. It's not a huge peptide by, for people that work in this space. But if I had to draw this manually, even with the hotkeys, this would be really, really painful and kind of annoying to have to do. I'm going to copy, again, Control-C, this sequence, and then I go to Paste Special, FASTA Peptide. When I do that, there is my sequence in our Helm representation, which those of you, again, that are working in this space, you recognize this. So I hover over the L, and it tells me that's leucine. I hover over the P, proline. Glutamic acid here, glutamine over here. So a really, really simple way to, again, take a text string and draw these things out. And again, because of the chemical intelligence that's built into ChemDraw, it says glycine here, but if I want to expand this residue and take a look at it, I can go ahead and do that. And that has now expanded over here. So it does understand the underlying chemical structure, and it will give me the appropriate chemical weight. If I say, hey, give me the molecular weight of this thing, despite it being all the single letter designations, it does recognize that it's about a 12K Dalton compound here. So for those of you that are working in these spaces, it's a really nice way for you to take these long strings of peptides or oligonucleotides and bring them into here using just literally a copy and paste mechanism. So already we've looked at 3 different ways that we can take complicated and interesting chemical structures and bring them into the canvas without having to draw any of it. It's a lot of copy and paste mechanisms here. While we're on the topic of things like peptides and things like that, let me bring up the Helm tool. So again, those of you that are familiar with the biopolymer space, you're used to using these particular things. And so we have a toolbar here that allows you to define these things. Oh, I want to define a particular amino acid, something like this. It becomes very easy to draw these things using the Helm toolbar. And again, when I hover over them, it does recognize that that is isoleucine. It comes with a chemical structure. It gives us a chemical output here. As a reminder, so Lindsay did a webinar, I think it was last quarter or maybe the quarter before, talking about our new product Signals ChemDraw. One of the things I want to kind of remind you of is, okay, so I have a peptide here that I'm working with. I might want to save this and work on it later. So I'm going to save it. And if you have Signals ChemDraw, you can save it into the Signals environment. So I'll say Quarterly Connect. Here is the name of that, and then save it. What this has done is it's saved into a cloud server that allows me to access it not only in the desktop application, but Signals ChemDraw includes a license to ChemDraw Plus. Now, this is a web-enabled version of ChemDraw. You can access this from any browser. So you just log into whatever computer. So if you're away from your principal machine where ChemDraw is installed, you can go to any computer, go to your ChemDraw Plus URL, and it says, oh, okay, why don't you sign in here? And I'm just in Chrome right now, right? And it says, okay, here's ChemDraw Plus. Here's that Quarterly Connect document that I just created. Click on that. And there we are. Here's that peptide that I just created. So I can continue working on it if I want. I say, oh, I want to resume Helm editing. So there's a toolbar here in ChemDraw Plus that allows me to go ahead and say, oh, yeah, I want to add more peptides to this. And this communication is round trip. So when I go open it back in my desktop version, these changes that I make into this document are going to be reflected in the desktop as well. One thing that I'll highlight here is that paste special operation does also work here. If you go into the text and you can say, oh, FASTA peptide, FASTA RNA, FASTA DNA. And so I can say, oh, yes, I have a peptide that I would like to add right to the canvas, insert, and there we go. So there's a lot of really slick Helm editing and drawing of biopolymers that are available here in the web version of ChemDraw as well, which is your ChemDraw Plus. So automatic saving that occurs here. I don't have to do that manually. The system is watching. So when I close out of this document and I go back to my desktop version, I can say, hey, I would like to open that quarterly Connect document. And then here is the edited peptide that you saw me do in the web version, and now the additional peptide that got added. So now you have this really seamless experience in working with things. I can start with something in the desktop software, and then if I'm on a different computer that doesn't have the desktop software installed on it, I just open a browser, log into the ChemDraw Plus application, and continue making changes. And then once I've saved those changes, they're available back again on my other computer that does have ChemDraw saved on it. Now, continuing in this vein, let's talk about, pasting the oligonucleotides, because peptides are a different thing. Oligonucleotides add in the bit of complexity in that you have a lot of things to consider, like the backbone, the ribose sugar, right? The phosphates and things like that. And so single letter designations do work, but they just carry a little bit more complexity. Suppose I'm reading a publication and I say, oh, you know what? I actually like this particular sequence, and I would like to copy that. Let me Control C. Again, this is going to be the theme for the day, right? There's a lot of copying and pasting, and then paste special as a FASTA DNA. And here we are. Now I have my sequence here where I've got my base residue. Here is the sugar, and then here is the phosphate. And all of these things can be treated as individual pieces of the full oligonucleotide. So you have a lot of power in terms of, hey, I need to make a modification on one of the sugars. I need to make a modification to one of the phosphates, or I modified one of the bases, those sorts of things. You can handle each of these things individually in the same way that you could pull open the particular amino acid, and if you wanted to make changes to it, you could expand it. I can expand all of these things. Hey, I'd like to see the thymine on here, and you do have the ability to expand it. And so if you say, oh, I'd like to remove this and turn it into a uracil, something like that, you do have the ability to go ahead and work with that thing if you want in that way. So we're moving through really quickly here. A lot of different ways for you. Again, I really haven't touched this toolbar at all, but I've generated a lot of very interesting chemical content here for people to consume. So we continue to add these different ways to use chemical intelligence in ChemDraw to allow you to put chemical content in here that's meaningful to folks, but it just makes your life a lot easier. You wouldn't want to have to draw even this very short oligonucleotide. You wouldn't want to have to draw this manually, and now you don't have to. So let's talk about the opposite direction though, because sometimes you say, hey, wait a minute, this is great that I can paste it here, but now I need to share this with somebody. I need to get this particular compound out to somebody where they can see it. Okay, I can select this structure, and then I'm going to copy as. And you see I've got all the very standard kind of chem informatics languages that are available to me. SMILES, INCHI, CDXML, MOL 2000, MOL 3000, Helm, and then if you want to do, we actually have the ability to do 3MF if you want to view this in a ball and stick format in a in a PowerPoint slide or something like that. And if you want to just flatten it out into an image, you have that ability. But I'm going to copy this particular smile string here, and then just open up my Word document, Control V, and there we go. Again, really seamless way for you to be able to easily communicate back and forth with folks using this particular chem informatics language. I can either copy it and paste it right into ChemDraw, or I can take a drawing that I have made and then copy it out as a smile string and then share it with folks in that way. All right. Moving on, so that's kind of where I'm going to wrap things up with in terms of dealing with the chem informatics languages. I do have one more thing that I want to show here with relation to that before I move on to some of the integrations and things that you can connect ChemDraw with. So it has to do with generic structure enumeration. Now, those of you that are into this space where you're doing library syntheses, or maybe you're doing research of patents and you're looking at a lot of Marcouche structures and things like that. This indole structure, one that's very familiar to a lot of us, but maybe I'm synthesizing multiple different kinds of indole-like structures, and I wanna show how I'm able to do that. So what I'm gonna do is put the square bracket here and then insert every potential heteroatom that I might be capturing. So not only do I have an indole, but a benzofuran, benzothiophene. Most of you that understand generic structures looking at this, you realize that this represents actually 3 discrete structures. One of the things that you may not be aware of, though, is that ChemDraw will draw these things for you. So I can say expand generic structure, and it just enumerates those things for me. Slick feature here, but let's get a little bit more interesting. I want to show you all the different things that you can do with this generic structure enumeration. Now, let's suppose I start with an oxetane, but this is a ring that can expand, right? There's variable sizes to it. So I'm going to vary the methylene length here between 1 and 3. So it goes from this oxetane and it goes all the way up to a tetrahydroparan. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So we're going to enumerate this structure, and now we're starting to get more compounds pulled out into here. So this is starting to get more interesting, but again, let's continue down this road. Now I've got a wandering substituent around this particular aryl group. And so let's say I've got this carbon here. I'm going to hold the shift key, that carbon there, that carbon there. I'm going to add variable attachment. Again, the star here is nothing that's surprising to any of you that are familiar with these kinds of structures. But now what I need to do is draw a bond to it. Note when I put the bond drawing tool over that star, it highlights exactly which atoms that attachment has been associated with. So I'm going to draw my bond out to here, and there we go. So now I have the variable heteroatoms here, the expanding ring over here, and then the wandering substituent around my aryl ring. We'll go to structure, expand, generic. Okay, now we're starting to get real interesting. This is starting to get to be a number of compounds that would have been really annoying to have to draw out manually one by one. Let's add one more layer of complexity here, and suppose that we have an R group on this particular substituent. What I'm going to draw is the R table that defines those substituents. Now, as soon as I hit R here and then exit out, note that it has numbered that particular bond there. So it recognizes that it's tied to this specific table and the contents of this table. So I'm going to and then add the attachment point there. And so the number matches basically the attachment point that's there. And then let's put in a couple of substituents. Let's say that the pyridine nitrogen here is going to wander around the ring. So here, go down there. This one, go there. All right, select all. Expand generic. 81 structures coming up. There we go. And so in a flash, you got 81 structures. No matter how good you are at ChemDraw, you're not going to be able to draw 81 structures that quickly. So the system is able to handle a lot of this kind of busy work for you. None of it is particularly complex, but having to do this many structures all at once would have been really tedious. And now you can have ChemDraw do all of the work for you. Something to note about this generic structure enumeration is that it does cap at 200 structures. And so if you build a library where you get more than 200 structures, ChemDraw warns you that, hey, wait a minute, I'm only going to be able to draw 200 of these. So whichever 200 I choose, that's what you're going to get, and you just won't see the rest. If you find yourself in that particular situation, what it will prompt you to do is expand it directly to an SD file, and this will translate it into basically a mol 3000 format if you want. And so the mol v3000 will come out as an SD file, which you can then open in whatever software. You can use the ChemDraw for Excel plugin in order to view everything in that particular SD file. But again, another way for you to work with your chem informatics information in that chem informatics language. I can take these things and instead of having to draw out all those structures and then translate each one individually into a smile string and put it in a spreadsheet, I can just automatically send these things into a spreadsheet and then send that off to somebody so that they can use it for downstream consumption. Okay, so that is the official kind of conclusion of the chem informatics section of things here. Let's go back to some of the different integrations that we are talking about here in the system. Now, ChemDraw, again, we want there to be a streamlining of access to content from ChemDraw directly. And so let's suppose, hey, I am running a reaction or I'm examining a particular structure or a scaffold or something, and I'd like to know what's kind of out there in terms of literature. What are my options in terms of being able to research this particular thing? Built right into the interface are connectors to both SciFinder and Reaxys. And so if I want to run this search, and many of you know that ChemDraw became the official drawing tool in SciFinder many years ago. But if I want to run this search right from the canvas, I just click this button. And it says, oh, okay, what do you want me to do here? Now, this search window should look very familiar to those of you that use SciFinder. So you say, oh, I want to look for this in terms of a substance or as a reaction, as a reference. I want to find commercial vendors, that sort of thing. Substances, search. And that automatically launches the search for me in SciFinder and pulls up all the results for me. And so you can see that it's slowly populating the results here. There we go. So it's run that search for me instead of me having to either copy and paste that structure, open SciFinder separately, and then run the search, or God forbid you have to come in and redraw it or something. Now you can literally just access it straight from the canvas using the integration of the icon that is right here. Now we have a number of other integrations that are built into the software as well. So I'm going to go ahead and move these guys out of the center. Now, Revity Signals maintains a database known as ChemACX. This is a database of commercial compounds that are available. We update it every quarter. We just basically go through all the vendor catalogs and make sure that those things are captured in here. There's more than 30 million compounds that are available in ChemACX. Again, this is something that's built into the software. I can say, oh, I want to find penicillin. And there we go. You see it's gone and found a lot of the different kind of penicillin structures, the different forms of it, sodium salts, penicillin F versus other forms of penicillin here. So this is something that's available to you right here. If I want to get more information about, oh, penicillin X, I'm curious about it. Here are the people that sell it and how much that costs. Some of the physicochemical properties of penicillin X, all of that good stuff. And if I want to add that straight to my canvas, I do have the ability to do that. Additionally, let's suppose that I know the CAS number of it. So I'll say, oh yeah, I have a CAS number that I want to put in here. And it just pulls that up for me, 87-01, here's my penicillin V. Again, here are the vendors, how much they have and what that costs. And I want to add it straight to the canvas. There we go. And now I've been able to add something here. So another way for you to be able to add content straight onto the ChemDraw canvas without having to touch any of the drawing tools. I know a CAS number, I know a chemical name, something like that. You can just use that ChemACX integration as long as it's a commercially available compound, and then just paste that thing straight into the onto the canvas here. Now, what I leveraged here is called an add-in. This allows you to basically connect databases and systems into ChemDraw. So the Reaxys and SciFinder ones are so popular that we just have these as stock toolbars within the system. And so if I go to view, it's actually my add-ins toolbar here is what you see here. But the Reaxys and SciFinder are so popular that that's why those are there. However, if you have Signals ChemDraw, you actually can build a connector to any database that you might have. So maybe you have a registration system where you put all of your unique and proprietary compounds, and you want to be able to call those onto the canvas, just like I did those commercial compounds from ChemACX. You can actually leverage the REST APIs in ChemDraw and build in an add-in that'll put another line here that leads to your internal registration or your inventory, so that you can call something in via a barcode or something like that. But it just gives you a lot of power to be able to build out a connector to another system besides the ones that we have discovered are very popular and that people want to have. Now, talking about the add-ins, we have added a couple more standard things, because you saw the Reaxys and you saw the SciFinder, but there's also Google Patents now. And so if I want to get into Scholar or Patents and pull that up, you see it says, oh, okay, similar to that SciFinder search, it's saying, what do you want me to do? Am I going through Scholar or am I going through Patents? Is it an exact structure search, a substructure, similarity? What is it that you want me to do here? Search. Oh, killed it, sorry. And there we are. You see, I've got all sorts of patents that are available to me, 33,000 results with this structure in it. So a wealth of knowledge is now available to me thanks to this new add-in integration here. Now, one of the other things that you may very likely find useful is for things that are reported and things like that. Maybe you want safety information on those things. We have built a connector to the PubChem database. And so what this is it's a publicly available database of essentially basically SDSs for all of these compounds. And so I want to get safety information about this particular item. I click on that icon and it takes me right to the hazards section of this. And if I want to get any of this information basically copied so that I can put it, right, let's go ahead and copy that hazard statement. There we go, copy. And then I want to put it into a write-up for an experiment or something, Control V, there we go. And if I want to access the rest of the SDS, because this has just brought me to the hazard section of it, I do have the ability to just go straight to here where I can see everything available to me for this. So this again is another integration that's built right into the interface here and allows you to easily pull up content that you want that's relevant to the structures that you've drawn. But instead of having to jump out to a separate software, log in and draw the structure again, or put in the CAS number again, or something like that, you actually have the ability to just leverage the content that's here in the interface. And as I said, again, if you have Signals ChemDraw, you have the ability to create your own add-ins using the REST APIs. And so you'll have an add-in manager where it says, oh, okay, these are the things that we're connected to. enable these things, put a check mark so that you can have things like your inventories or registrations or whatever other database you might like to have connected to the system. So with that, actually, that's all the content that I have for you today. It's a quick walkthrough of just ways that you can really work with content that doesn't require you to draw anything. You don't have to use the drawing tools at all. You can use a lot of different content to put chemical structures into the ChemDraw canvas and then share those things back and forth, and then also leverage tools and integrations that are built into the ChemDraw interface to really simplify your life, whether it be calling out to an external database or pulling in additional information that you might be curious about around the particular things that you've drawn on the canvas. So with that, I suppose, Lindsay, I can turn it over and we can get into the Q&A if you would like.
That sounds great. We actually don't have many questions coming in through the questions panel. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the questions pane of the GoToMeeting. Generally, I know one thing that you brought up, Jinsu, maybe while we're waiting for some questions to come in, was the ability to copy as 3MF. And I'm wondering if you can explore that just a little bit and show the users how that's used and how it can maybe be used for high impact presentations.
Absolutely. So let's pick sucrose because this has a lot of interesting stereochemistry here. So what I am going to do is copy as 3MF. We'll go ball and stick. This is your classic, those of you that use the MollyMod or molecular models or whatever, it's copying this as 3MF. This is actually a 3D printing format. So I'm going to copy it as the ball and stick, and then let's create let's say that I have a research presentation and I want to show this particular structure to folks. I have copied that as a 3MF. I'm going to now paste it here. And so you can see, oops, do I have to clean this up? Let me clean that up first. So I'm going to apply 3D cleanup. There we go. Get it into its minimized state. So again, for those of you that are not familiar with this particular feature, you can apply 3D kind of structural corrections to these flattened out structures so you can get a look at it. Obviously, you can use the Chem 3D software as well to do that. But now if you just like to kind of get a view of it on the canvas, you have that ability. I'm going to now copy this as 3MF and then go back to that PowerPoint slide and paste it. And there we go. That's got a little bit more interesting sort of contour to it. So I say, oh, I'd like to present this to people in some kind of research meeting. I can apply an interesting animation. Let's turntable. There we go. And so you have this really nice way of presenting content to folks in, for whatever purposes, whether it be, a research presentation or a seminar or whatever. But it just is a really powerful way to take advantage of, again, a molecular language so that you can go ahead and represent those things very easily, because obviously drawing this thing manually would have been very challenging. And you can just leverage a lot of the tools that are built into ChemDraw to help you do these things.
Awesome. Thank you, Jinsu. Okay, we do have some questions coming in. One interesting question that I see is, can this be used in analytical chemistry? Can ChemDraw, I'm assuming that the question is maybe more general of, can ChemDraw be used in analytical chemistry?
Sure. So it depends on what the intent is, but we do have certain tools. So obviously, for example, hey, I'm running an LCMS and oops, I don't want the 3D select. I'm running an LCMS and I want to get properties of what I should be looking for. Obviously, we have the analysis properties here, right? We can get you the M to Z If you want, we can get you the exact mass. If you need, again, if you're doing maybe MSMS, something like that, maybe I want all of these. And there we go. So I've got my IUPAC name, I've got my chemical formula, exact mass versus the molecular weight, M to Z ratios, this sort of thing here. One of the other things that we do have is the ability to do a mass fragmentation. And so if I want to say, hey, I expect that it's going to fragment at this benzyl piece here, I can actually draw that line, and it tells me, okay, these are the fragments that we expect to see coming out of the mass. So you're able to do this, and then if I do that, it officially breaks the bond. It made a bit of a mess of that properties tab there. So yeah, depending on what you mean in terms of analytical chemistry, in general, yes. And there are some tools that are available to you here for people that are in that space.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there modules for using ChemDraw to start structures in molecular modeling programs? If yes, what systems are supported?
Right. So that gets a little bit into that add-in feature that I was talking about. So one thing to know about ChemDraw is that we have basically a JavaScript deployment of ChemDraw. That's what you saw in ChemDraw Plus, which is our web deployment there. You can leverage that in other softwares, and we have had a lot of people do that. Hey, we have a registration software, but we don't really like the drawing tool that's on it. We'd like ChemDraw to be the drawing tool attached to this registration software. We will overlay the ChemDraw JS over the top of that so that people can use ChemDraw as the primary drawing tool. So to that end, you could conceivably, and it depends on the software, but you could conceivably have ChemDraw be the drawing tool that lays over the top of that if you want. Now, if you're talking about, oh, some of these structures, I want to be able to just export them for use into something, yeah, again, you can build out the connectors here using the REST APIs so that you'll have an icon that leads to whatever your molecular modeling software might be. It just really hinges on whether they have the proper REST APIs and how you want those things shuttled over. You'd have to pick formats and things like that.
Great, thank you. One quick question around how users can see the Reaxys and SciFinder add-ins in addition to the Google Patents add-in in ChemDraw.
Great question. So first thing to know is that you have to be at a specific level of ChemDraw. As many of you know, we have 3 different levels of ChemDraw. The first is ChemDraw Prime, the second is ChemDraw Professional, and then the third is Signals ChemDraw. If you are on ChemDraw Prime, you will not have access to these tools. And similarly, you won't have access to things like name to structure, NMR prediction, that sort of thing. But if you do have ChemDraw Professional or Signals ChemDraw, then what you do is you go into View, and it's your add-ins toolbar. So you see how mine is not there. So if you aren't seeing it, and you know that you're on ChemDraw Professional or Signals ChemDraw, you'll go to View, Add-ins toolbar, and there we go. That contains all of the stock things that are available.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Can you demonstrate one more time how to expand a structure?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a really slick feature. So I'm glad this question comes up because I think this is really cool. I wish I had this when I was in graduate school. It would have made my life a lot easier. So I'm going to just show you the different flavors of this. And I believe we might have like a YouTube video that walks through this, but let's see here. So if I want to mod basically the hetero atom here, right? What I showed you earlier was if you type the, oops, not the capital N, just the N, you get the indole. Now, if I hit enter, it opens up a text window for me, and I'm going to use square brackets, and then N, comma, O, comma, S. There we are. So I've separated every heteroatom that I want available to me by commas. That's how you define the different heteroatoms you might want at a particular position on the structure. Now, in order to get the varying length of carbon here, again, you open the text tool by hitting enter over that atom, and this time you use the curved parentheses, and I'm going to put CH2 because the number of methylenes is changing, and then I put 1 to 3 because that's the number of carbons that it's changing by. So here I use the square bracket for heteroatoms. Here I use the curved bracket in order to define how many methylenes it's changing by. Now, in order to add the substituent groups around the aryl ring, and it doesn't have to be aryl, obviously, if it's a linear aliphatic chain and there's various substituents that can apply, that's fine. I select this atom first, and then I hold the shift key, and then I select whichever other atom I want this to connect to, and keep holding the shift key, select that one, and now it's highlighted basically, oh, okay, these are the atoms where something is going to go. Structure, add variable attachment, and it puts the star there. So then once the star is there, I'm going to get my bond drawing tool and hover over that. And then again, when I hover over the star, it shows me where the attachment points are, and I draw my bond off of this thing. And then that's how I get the wandering substituent around the ring. And then the last thing here for the R group, there's actually an icon over here for the query tools, and it's where you can define the basically the stereochemical kind of relationships to specific atoms if you want to do that. The R1 table is, again, it's something that if you have ChemDraw Prime, you're not going to have access to it. You have to have ChemDraw Professional or Signals ChemDraw, but then select, draw that table R, and then get into here and start drawing the substituents. Now the key here is the attachment point here. I hit the period key over that, and that's how that defined that is the connecting point here, that's what's going to go there. And then it's just a matter of copying these structures and then moving the substituents around so that you get individual compounds, right? So there we go. That's kind of the, and then you select all, select everything. Make sure that if you want to expand it, you're not just selecting just the structure. You need to get the R table as well. Select all of this, and then you go to structure, expand generic. And then, like I said, if it goes above 200 distinct structures, just go ahead and send that straight to an SD file, and it'll generate that for you.
Excellent. One other thing that I might note is there is an expand from label to structure option in ChemDraw as well. So if you are using a label such as pH for a phenyl or a benzene ring, when you have those labels, you can actually use the expand label option to expand it into an actual structure on the canvas as well. That's a perfect example.
There we go. Bach, I go to expand label, and it recognizes what that is, and it'll expand it for me.
That's right. And then an additional thing for that as well is you can save that as, an actual name to be saved in our database, that entire structure, and you can collapse that into a label, or you can expand it to the full structure as well.
Correct. So yeah, there are basically nicknames and then add structures. So for something that's like a protecting group, one of the kind of lesser known things, your nozzles and those sorts of things, you can put those things in, give it your own label, or maybe you just hate the label Bach. Maybe you'd rather it be something else. Maybe some people like the T-Bach. You can change what that label is. What I'll do is I'll select the Bach here, and then I say, oh, what I'd like to do is define this as a nickname, and see how it's just chosen that particular fragment. It gives me the radical to let me know, okay, this is actually a label of a fragment of something. It's not a full structure, and I can say, oh, I want it to be T-Bach. Something like that, and it'll understand that. So I save that, And then next time I want to draw this particular structure, it understands what that is. And if I select this and then expand it, see, it recognizes that. So you can give whatever protecting groups you want. You can change any standard ones. You can put in your own custom ones, and then you can actually save an entire structure as well. So the structure, add structure to your dictionary, right? So you have that ability to do that. So I think I actually did do this. Let's see here. And then I say, name the structure. Oh, no, I didn't do it. Good. All right then. There we go. I want to add this structure to my dictionary, call it espresso. Oh, espresso was in there, but coffee wasn't? That makes no sense. Okay, espresso. And there we are. Now espresso has a structure affiliated with it. So another nice way for you to either rename things in a way, or if you have proprietary names and numbers for structures and you want to be able to call them up that way, you can do that.
Excellent. Okay, so it looks like we have a few questions around the add-in APIs and how to use them. So one more specific questions is that are there resources and documentations for the add-in API and software development kit? The answer to that, I'll go ahead and just take that one, is yes. We have actually a public GitHub repository where there are examples of ChemDraw add-ins and ones that you can use if you have access to the add-in APIs and backend software development kit. You can use those to sort of explore how that works itself. We have another question that has come in as well around older versions of ChemDraw and ChemOffice, and are there new features that are added to previous versions of ChemDraw?
So we don't add features to previous versions. You definitely, yeah, if we add a feature, then you have to be on the most current version. And so I can say that definitively some of the hotkey stuff, for example, that you saw, so where I'm just drawing structures this way, but for example, the capital F turning up a trifluoromethyl, that didn't get introduced till like ChemDraw 19 or something like that. So if you have ChemDraw 17 and you try to hit the capital F, you're not going to get this. You have to be on 19 or later. So yeah, the improvements that we make do not apply retroactively. It's part of the reason that we sunset the older versions, is that they just kind of fall out of compliance and things like that. So yeah, you'll need to be on the newest versions to get all the latest features.
Which leads into the most recent question is, what version of ChemDraw are you running today? Are you demoing on today?
Let's see here. 23.01. So I am on the most current version that's available. This is what is known as Signals ChemDraw.
That's right.
So that's why I was able to access the web version, ChemDraw Plus, and all of that good stuff.
Wonderful. Okay, so one other question came in. There's been a few questions about some functionalities. Are they available in the Mac version? So the expand generic structure function, is this available on Mac as well?
That one should be.
Yeah.
I'm not certain. Yeah, but it should be, right?
Yes, it definitely is. So I myself run the Mac version of ChemDraw, so I can definitively say
Okay, perfect.
structure is definitely, yeah, part of it. Is it possible to expand to 4 digits after the decimal for the M/Z in ChemDraw? So when you're looking at the analysis pane.
I see. So you'd like more fidelity here, more significant figures on the M to Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is hard coded in, is it not? I'm not
Yeah,
aware of
so
a
we
change
can, if we,
in the interface.
you can, so if you pull up from the view menu,
Yeah, that's what I was
Jinsu,
going to say, is the
the
chemical properties.
analysis, and pull up the analysis window as well. You can set the decimal places, but I am not sure that the decimal places on the analysis toolbar will, you see the decimals on the right-hand side there of that window right there. Yeah,
Ah,
there you
there we
go.
go.
Perfect.
There we go. But yeah, that doesn't trickle down to this particular one, right? You have to have the window open.
You have to have the window open, yeah. So
Okay.
if you do it from the right-click menu, you won't get that pasted in, but if you can certainly set it here in the analysis window and then paste it, I believe you should get the correct.
There we go.
There you go. Wonderful. Okay, let's see. Is ChemDraw Plus included in the ChemDraw desktop purchase, or is it a separate product?
So if you get Signals ChemDraw, then it is included. So yeah, you would have to have that particular product. If you get ChemDraw Prime or ChemDraw Professional, it's not in there. So think of it as being like a feature. Like if you have ChemDraw Prime, you don't have name to structure and you don't have NMR prediction. But if you get ChemDraw Professional, then these things pop up. ChemDraw Plus is a lot like that. If you go to Signals ChemDraw, then ChemDraw Plus becomes available to you as a feature.
Excellent. And one thing to note about ChemDraw Plus is it is within the Signals Research platform, and it is getting updated on a monthly basis. So we push updates to that application every month. It's on a little bit faster release cycle than the desktop product itself. So as you continue to use it and continue to check back in the application, you'll see new features and functions added there as well. So we'll have a lot of cool things coming in the next few months. And I'm sure in the next ChemDraw Connect series, we'll give some previews of what's to come. With that, I think we can go ahead and close. We have a few more questions. If we did not get to your question today, during today's live session, we will try to make sure any of the super important ones we are able to get back to you. If you have questions about how to access ChemDraw and the products, you can always go to the Revity Signals webpage and actually request more information about the product or take a look at what we have available on the web pages for ChemDraw specifically. Thank you, Jinsu, so much for your time, taking the time to present all of this awesome content today. And I look forward to everybody joining us at the next Connect series in a few months. So thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.